Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2000 comedy film Big Mama's House. Now, this is a film that was a big fat hit when it came out. It made over $100 million in the box office, enough to get not one but two sequels. And it's a film that a lot of people apparently grew up with. I'm not one of them though. I think I might have seen this like once on TV when I was a kid, and I thought it was watchable, but it wasn't anything that I would consider to be worthy of another watch or watching over and over again or anything that I was particularly super fond of. And after watching it again, yeah, this is not one of my favorites, but I could have some fun with it. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on Big Mama's House, I would like to give a special shout out to Bronson for yet again requesting another review. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. Link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Big Mama's House is directed by Raja Gosnell, who, in my opinion, he did an alright job directing this. It had a good amount of pep to it and uh, energy. It wasn't something that was too flabby when it comes to the direction or too slow. I think some of his experience with pratfalls and slapstick with Home Alone 3 definitely did pay off here when it comes to the slapstick sequences with Martin Lawrence and the fat suit and so on and so forth. And the action when it is there, it's serviceable for a comedy director or somebody who wasn't really that well known for their action directing. It does have adequate enough framing when it comes to the shots. There is a decent amount of movement and fluidity when it comes to the camera or the different kinds of techniques that Raja uses for his direction in this. There are some shots that actually look pretty slick and stylish, mainly a lot of the shots involving Terrence Howard's character. I think Raja did a great job making him look cool and actually pretty intimidating. I mean, there's a straight up jump scare out of a horror movie with that character in one scene in this, and Raja shot that scene really well. But there's a lot of moments in this that aren't really that impressive technically. And I have to be honest, visually, it looks identical to a slew of other comedies from the 2000s. They all seem to have like this similar look to them. They all blend together visually, and this film is no exception. So Raja, he did a fine enough job directing this for what this film is, but it's not going to win any awards. Now, the film is written by the duo of Daryl Quarles and Don Reimer. And this screenplay, this is honestly the exact kind of script you would expect for a movie called Big Mama's House, for better or worse. It has its moments. There are some bits that are fairly clever. There are some laughs to be found here. Its plot is pretty thin. It doesn't really have a good amount of weight to it, but there's enough there that there's some tension and there's a little bit of suspense and there's some intrigue, like whether or not Sherry really is guilty or the stuff involving Lester and how he's going to find Sherry and her son Trent and what is Malcolm gonna do and of course the whole stuff with Malcolm and how he's gonna keep this secret from Sherry and other people. Like how is he gonna continue this facade of being Big Mama? So I think there are definitely some aspects of this script that are decent enough. So that's why I don't think this is an outright bad screenplay, but it's not a great script either. It starts off really awkwardly with this opening sequence where Malcolm and his partner John, they're undercover, and they're trying to bust this dogfighting ring somewhere in Korea, and Malcolm is even wearing Asian face makeup and says a line that is honestly pretty cringe about Seoul, Korea. Get it? Seoul, Korea, because he's black and he's wearing Asian makeup. Ha 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 ha. And Malcolm and his partner John, they bust the ring, but now they are set up to try to tackle their next case, which is the case of this escaped convict named Lester Vesco. So they have to try to find this guy and track him down and arrest him. And they are utilizing his connection with this former girlfriend of his and bank teller and Sherry. And so they're trying to find her so that they can find Lester. And they also suspect her to maybe be in on it with Lester. They find out that Sherry has a grandmother. And so they decide to go and rent a house right across from the grandmother's place. And there's this whole scene where John is trying to distract Big Mama and prevent her from going back to her house after she and these other neighborhood ladies went over to John's place across the street to welcome him to the neighborhood. And Big Mama's got stomach problems, so she's got to go. And John's trying to prevent her from going into the house because Malcolm is trying to bug it and set up a wiretap and, cameras and stuff. Well, she's got to go, and she winds up hitting John in the balls and gets him out of the way and gets into the house. Malcolm just barely cleans up his footprints and hides in the shower. But of course, she's got to go. So you have that scene where she gets on the toilet and takes a shit and it smells bad. And she's talking, ooh, those stewed prunes went right through me. Ooh, and then farts, and it isn't funny. And it's incredibly lazy and uninspired when it comes to the comedy. There's even a bit prior to that where Martin Lawrence's character Malcolm is grossed out when she strips down naked because she's gonna. Well, actually, it's after she went to the bathroom. Then she strips down naked because she's gonna get into the shower. And you have the line where Malcolm says, "Well, that's a whole lot of ass." It's just, there's a lot of that in this. A lot of, "Ooh, that's a lot of ass," or there's like a ton of that for some reason. Like, "Oh, I remember that ass." Like it's just like one of those things where it's like, okay, really, really have butts on your brain, don't you? And there's this whole ridiculousness where instead of trying to find some other way to find Lester, like, I don't know, find Sherry and interrogate her, instead Sherry calls Big Mama's house and Malcolm and John are there because they're trying to set up a wiretap. She's trying to visit her Big Mama, but Big Mama's not answering the phone. So Malcolm decides to answer it and starts acting like he's Big Mama. So then John uses the makeup and then turns Malcolm into a Big Mama with makeup and padding. And now it's like a hood version of Mrs. Doubtfire. But the whole thing is really repetitive, and it's not just the Mrs. Doubtfire stuff. Even the whole reason for why Malcolm answered the phone, that's just straight out of Bad Boys. That's the same thing that happened with Martin Lawrence's character in Bad Boys, where he acts like he's Will Smith's character in that movie. It's like, why can't you just be yourself, Martin? And even Big Mama is derivative of a character you played in Martin. So he's got to try to convincingly act as if he's Big Mama, but he really doesn't do it that well. He tries to use a voice match, but he sucks at it. Like, he doesn't sound anything at all like Hattie Mae, like Big Mama. But of course, for the premise of the plot and just for the film in general, just have to go along with it. And so you get a lot of shenanigans that you would expect when it comes to a movie where a guy's wearing a dress and acting like a lady, and then trying to act like he's Big Mama, trying to cook a meal of soul food for Sherry and her son, but he doesn't know how to cook. Almost expected his breasts to get lit on fire, just like in Mrs. Doubtfire, but they didn't go that route. But they went the route where his mask started to fall off, so then he had to scramble to try to fix it, and then use duct tape to fix it. And then Sherry comments on it. It's like, "Ooh, it's a beauty routine. Oh yeah, like the meringue in Mrs. Doubtfire. It was a lot funnier in that than it is here." And I will give the script this. Like I said, there are some nice heartfelt moments at points. There is honestly some good scenes between Sherry and Malcolm as Big Mama, where Sherry's talking about her childhood and growing up with Big Mama and opening up to her. And there's some nice moments of bonding with Sherry and Malcolm when he's in disguise, or between Trent, Sherry's son, and Malcolm. There are a lot of other just shenanigan stuff though. Like this older guy in the neighborhood who has a hots for Big Mama, so he's trying to come on to Big Mama. Malcolm's not having any of that, so he's just constantly trying to keep him at bay. There's a scene where she goes with Sherry and then winds up getting grabbed by her gal pals, and they go to a karate class. And the karate class is hosted by this guy named Nolan, who's some dim-witted security guard, and he's abusing the ladies, not sexually, just physically, just smacking them around. And Malcolm decides to give him a taste of his own medicine in a predictable fashion. All the while, Lester is trying to find Sherry, trying to find the money, and the script does a good job making Lester feel like a legitimate threat. And there's even a point where he is the focus of a jump scare when Sherry's having a nightmare featuring the guy. That's honestly a more effective jump scare than some of the horror films that I've seen as of late. Never thought I would ever say that. The Big Mama's House has one of the better jump scares that I've seen in a while. Uh, but yeah, did a good job making Lester feel like an intimidating presence. But he's underutilized in this script. There's a bit where Malcolm decides to take off the disguise of Big Mama and decides to be this friend of Big Mama's, so then he can start dating Sherry. and it's not very professional, but the scenes between him and Sherry and Trent are sweet. Like the scene when they go fishing and Trent's having a hard time catching these fireflies and Malcolm catches one for him, and you can definitely tell that there's a good amount of chemistry between the two characters, between Sherry and Malcolm. You kind of ruin it a little bit though with this later scene when Malcolm is dressed as Big Mama during a storm one night, and then Sherry comes in and she's freaked out by the storm too, and comes into bed with Big Mama, and Malcolm is all bricked up. He's got a boner and he's sticking it into her back, and then he's like, "Oh, it's a flashlight," and then you have this whole line where Sherry later on is like, "My Big Mama, do you have another flashlight?" And then Malcolm just looks at the camera, and I'm like, "That's just creepy and weird. Like that's not funny." And a lot of the stuff with the real Big Mama too is like, okay, what in the hell is going on with that? She just conveniently is like, "Oh, a friend of mine is sick. I'm gonna go away for a couple weeks." But the FBI never keeps an eye on her. Like, why did she ever come back? She should have never been able to come back yet until the investigation was finished. Just find out where she is and then stall her. It's like these FBI agents are incompetent as hell. They suck at their jobs. And there's this big party at the end where that is what is revealed to be the shady stuff that you think a Sherry was doing with a bag and making a phone call earlier. It was actually just her setting up a surprise party for Big Mama. Oh, and of course there also was the basketball scene. Sorry, I almost forgot about that. Probably because it's pretty forgettable. Or the scene at church where Big Mama has her big speech about, telling the truth. You find out during the party when Big Mama is going up to check on Trent. She finds his uh, suitcase, his trunk actually, with his toys in it. And there's a hidden compartment. There's money. And Malcolm as Big Mama, he confronts Sherry, tries to get her to tell the truth. She does. You find out she actually wasn't working with Lester. She knew about the keys being missing or some of this other stuff, but she didn't tell anybody, so she feels guilty about that. But other than that, she really wasn't that involved with the crime. And Lester, he's found his way to Big Mama's house, and he winds up taking Trent and actually holds him hostage in a pretty tense scene where he's telling him a story. And then Big Mama shows up, the real Big Mama. You have this whole thing going on with the two Big Mamas, and they wind up teaming up against Lester. Because you have this whole line from the real Big Mama, "Not in Big Mama's house." You're like, oh God. And Lester gets his ass kicked through a window by Malcolm as Big Mama. But because of the fact that he lied to Sherry, she's pissed at him. But she gets over it really quickly because Malcolm goes to church the next day, confesses, says he's sorry, and then Sherry forgives him. And then Malcolm and Sherry kiss. And then the real Big Mama sings a church hymn, sings "Oh Happy Day" with the choir. And everybody, I guess, lives happily ever after. It's one of those scripts where it's pretty predictable. Definitely something that I would say is fairly one note. Doesn't really do anything that inventive or that creative most of the time when it comes to the storytelling or the different sort of things that Big Mama is involved with. I mean, there's even a scene where Big Mama is supposed to help with a baby getting born and is grossed out by it, which is just another cliched, a bit of comedy. In all honesty, that was done way better in Blank Man in that particular small sequence in that movie. That entire film is funnier than Big Mama's House, if you ask me. Uh, but it didn't do nearly as well financially. But yeah, it's just one of those screenplays where it could be worse. I mean, look no further than Big Mama's House 3, Big Mama's like father, like son. But could have been better too. Like, I genuinely feel this could have been funnier, but it just seemed that like the script just went for the safe route. And honestly, there isn't enough really enough of a plot. I would have liked to have had more of an actual plot here. Because it just seemed like there was just a lot of scenes that were just vignettes, just little skits involving Big Mama doing stuff that's supposed to be funny. And just a very threadbare, skinny plot line. Now, the cast, they're trying. Martin Lawrence, he's not convincing as an old woman. He just is not. But he's game. He's not really just doing a paycheck kind of role. Like, he's giving it his all. He's actually trying to make this work. And at times it does because of what Martin brings to it with his mannerisms or facial expressions or the way he says certain lines. I liked him more when he wasn't Big Mama, but I there was a certain charm to his Big Mama though that I have to give him credit for. Uh Nia Long, she was fine as hell as Sherry and had some great chemistry with Martin Lawrence. Whether it's Martin as Big Mama or Martin as Malcolm. Joshua Washington was okay as Trent, Sherry's 10-year-old son. He's probably at his best when he does that scene where he's doing martial arts and he's handing Malcolm his butt. Paul Giamatti, I hated him in this. He was so annoying and obnoxious. It seemed like every moment his character was on screen, he was like coked up and just going way too far with the role, just way too over the top. Just annoying, just irritating. Terrence Howard, I felt for the small role that he had, he did a lot with it. He was intimidating. He was chill. Like honestly, there were numerous scenes in this where he looked like he was just straight out of a GQ magazine. And I just wish you had more of him because he did such a good job. I mean, that whole way that he said that line after he asked for directions to Big Mama's house, and he's all like, "Big Mama's just gonna die when she sees me." Like, I just thought he did a great job in this as the bad guy. Anthony Anderson was also pretty good as the security guard. Nolan would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more of him too, because he delivered a couple of laughs, especially the scene when he tries to be a hero and pull a gun on Terrence Howard, and then like the bullets just fall out of the gun because he's just a moron. Like, he doesn't know even how to operate a gun properly. Just just the magazine just falls right out. And then the scared look on his face when Terrence Howard pulls the gun out and points it at him. Um, Ella Mitchell, she was not too bad as the real Big Mama. Phyllis Applegate, it was pretty Sadie, Big Mama's nosy neighbor. Rest of the cast, I mean, you got Tachina Arnold as the pregnant woman, Nolan's younger sister. It was nice to see her. Octavia Spencer, and probably one of her earlier roles, is a neighbor and a friend of Retha and Sherry's. You got Cedric the Entertainer, who plays the Reverend. but isn't really particularly that funny though. But it's fun to see him. Got Aldous Hodge, who plays one of the basketball kids, who um, Big Mama and Trent dunk on at one point in the movie. He was in, I think, I think, yeah, Aldous Hodge and his brother were also in this, and one of them was in a movie that I reviewed, Dorm Days. So I was like, "Well, hey, it's that guy. It's on he. I remember him from something." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's Dorm Days. That's why." Honestly, that wasn't a great movie either, but I'd rather watch that than Big Mama's House again, to be perfectly honest. That's just a teen sex comedy. But yeah, the cast, it's fine, I guess. Martin Lawrence and Nia Long are a cute couple, and Terrence Howard's a good villain, and Anthony Anderson has some good moments in it. So I would say that's one of the better things about the film, even though it's not great either. The cinematography by Michael D. O'Shea, it's so. It looks all right, but there are moments where it doesn't look that different from an episode of a sitcom. The editing by Bruce Green, Kent Beta, eh, it's okay. The music by Richard Gibbs. I don't remember any of the music in this. I don't remember a single note from this score. The epitome of forgettable, and in one ear and out the other. The soundtrack music they used, I wasn't really big on either. It was just a lot of loud, obnoxious rap that wasn't really that catchy, or stuff that didn't always necessarily fit with the scene that well. Just not a very good soundtrack, in all honesty. Oh, and I might as well mention the makeup effects by Greg Kinnear. They're not too bad. I definitely feel that he did more impressive work in Mrs. Doubtfire or other films in his filmography like Dracula, but the makeup looks convincing enough. I don't think the makeup is the problem when it comes to the Big Mama persona. It's more due to how Martin Lawrence just can't really pull off a convincing woman's voice. It just sounds like a guy who's just trying to sound sassy. That's really about it. But the makeup, it's it's definitely pretty solid for the kind of movie that Big Mama's House is. It's not too long. It's only like 90 something minutes, so I would say it's definitely a decently paced movie. There weren't too many slow points in it. So I didn't think it was that boring or particularly dull, but it wasn't like laugh out loud hilarious and a riot and really entertaining either. Like it was just something that was just kind of okay. It was there. Definitely don't know why this needed any sequels. Um, but money talks. I don't really know what else to say about Big Mama's House. I really don't. Other than thanks for watching my review. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.